Well, we are pleased once again to be joined by Monique DeSpain, Republican candidate for Congress for the 4th Congressional District, joining us in our studio as we get closer and closer to Election Day. How are things going?
Really well.
Good. Well, let's talk about some of the issues. Let's start with the economy. I think a lot of people in this district, that's still top of mind for a lot of people. Even though inflation has come down and the labor market does remain strong, wages still aren't keeping up with the cost of goods and services and housing. What more needs to be done to help working family afford necessary things?
Well, clearly we need to cut wasteful government spending. We need to control the unsecured border, which is costing our country at least $150 billion a year. This is runaway spending that needs to be checked. We need to reduce regulatory restrictions on businesses, which are the backbone of our economy. The small businesses, I'm proud to say I've been endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Businesses. They support me because our opponent, Val Hoy, scored at 14 out of 100% in her votes in Congress. In her one and only term, she's voted against business every opportunity she gets. We need to get rid of career politicians like that don't support a healthy, prosperous economy. We're feeling it right here in the district. One of my sons, he's 26, he's just visiting from LA. We got together with his friends. All of them are feeling inflation. Maybe this current administration says it's coming down, but nobody's feeling the relief. People are not able to afford their basic necessities, pharmaceuticals. I just went and got a bunch of preventative cold medicine, lozenges and throat spray, $85 to get maybe 4 different types of cold relief. That's not even paid for by insurance. That's what people are struggling with. Inflation is a budget buster. Over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Our government officials need to take it seriously and stop denying. I've said many times, all progress begins with telling the truth. And the truth is our government is wasting money, not relieving businesses and people, not addressing the challenges of everyday life.
One of the challenges of everyday life is child care. Would you support an increased child tax credit? And how can we further address the rising costs and lack of availability for childcare?
Well, that's exactly it, the lack of availability. No tax credit's going to help. Of course I would support a tax credit, but it's just abandoned. I know when I was working, I just had an average, comfortable, middle-class income as a single mother. I didn't qualify for any of those tax credits. So we need to look at that, of course, but it doesn't really help if you can't find childcare. I just noticed the Montessori, I think Horizons on Amazon is closed. What do we do? What are our elected officials doing to inspire a workforce that can provide safe child care? That's what we need to work on. And when you talk about the economy, if we support businesses, they hire people. And all this positivity would develop and attract workers that can support working mothers and fathers.
You mentioned the border, big issue for you. Do we need more money there? Do we need more Border Patrol officers?
No.
Obviously, former President Trump he ran his first term on building the wall and increasing that. What are the key components of improving the immigration crisis?
We need to consider everything, all the above. I don't think spending more money, that is just the classic current administration's response to everything. We are awash with money on a lot of the issues right here in the district. But as for the border wall, I went and visited Yuma, Arizona. Portions of the wall, construction was stopped day one. That was the Biden-Harris administration's #1 priority, to issue executive orders and stop the good things, which were barriers, cameras. I saw the pole, like a street pole there, where the cameras that have been purchased, contracts executed, all halted, and there are no cameras and lights because of the current administration. So I would reinvigorate the plans that were already in play and that were halted. Literally, there are pieces of the wall laying there waiting to be installed. The Biden-Harris administration literally used a lesser quality fencing to patch up gaps in the wall, the Trump wall, leaving the Trump wall bits that were there to be installed, even selling it at 90% cost. It's to put Americans' national safety, national security at risk over political gamesmanship is absolutely criminal in my view. And we need to get back to really getting on the same page. We all agree that we want national security for everyone who lives in the United States. When we have elected representatives in the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate that don't want to secure the border, that is problem number one we need to solve. And that's what I offer, a stark contrast to our current representative who has voted against the one border bill that the House did pass despite her voting against it, and sat and collected dust in the Senate and still sits there today. And that was to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policies, to stop the catch and release policies, to continue to put physical barriers where it's appropriate, to give the Border Patrol, right now Border Patrol, instead of border patrolling and securing the border, they are arresting and releasing illegal immigrants into our country. So we changed their rules of, the rules of engagement there. Just any and all, there's so many ways that we can secure the border. It's really all policy driven. So you get rid of the elected representatives of the American people that don't support national security.
But ultimately, some of that's going to cost money. I mean, if we are going to get that, even though some of the border wall, like you said, could be there and just needs to be put up, that's going to cost money. So there still needs to be some money that is added to what we're...
There was a contract in place and that was halted and voided by the Biden administration to build a wall. I just mentioned the cameras that are purchased and not installed, the lighting that was not installed, making security difficult and dangerous for Border Patrol. How is it that some people like our opponent, Val Hoy, justifies the $150 billion it's costing our communities, our country, to support the policies that are in place now? Are they really concerned about money? I don't think so. But of course, whatever money we need to spend, and I say this about all federal and state spending, transparency and accountability. So there is billions of dollars flowing into the business of the border. Much of it is being garnered by the cartels. Our current elected administration, Biden-Harris administration, is supporting a mega multi-billion-dollar business for the cartels.
What about the immigrants that are here? Obviously, there was discussion at both the presidential and vice presidential debates about mass deportation. We don't know the exact number, but 20 million, possibly more than that, of immigrants lacking permanent legal status. Do you support a mass deportation, and how do you address those people?
I support the immediate exigent need to secure the border and stop the hemorrhaging, right? And our current Biden-Harris administration, supported by Biden-bot Val Hoy, has created quite a catastrophe that's going to take years and years and billions of dollars to untwist. But we start the journey one step at a time. The obvious low-hanging fruit would be to deport the 650,000 criminals, convicted criminals, murderers, rapists that are in our country. The Border Patrol has reported those statistics. Did you see those? The day that VP Harris was visiting the border, they reported that 650,000 convicted felons are in the United States. They should be deported immediately.
There are some people here, though, of course, children that could be here legally, parents who came
Absolutely.
undocumented.
There are over 300,000 children unaccompanied who are victims of human trafficking. We need to save them. We need to figure out who they are, who has them. Their handlers, their perpetrators need to be taken out of this country immediately, not put into our prison system, which is also another problem, lacking transparency and accountability and costing the American people a lot of money. They need to be deported. Criminals should be deported first. Can we all agree on that? We should never elect any representative who doesn't believe that basic fundamental right of the American people. My opponent, Val Hoy, voted against 10 bills that had to be passed by the American people and their representatives that care about their safety because she refused to support a secure border and her ilk. The people who refuse to secure the border have blood on their hands. We have people who have been murdered by illegal immigrants. We have women and children that have been raped, mutilated, and murdered by illegal immigrants. We have the VA system burdened by illegal immigrants. We have cops being assaulted by illegal immigrants. And Val Hoy voted against every single bill that, thank God, was passed by Republicans and Democrats who care about the American people. And all of this affects Oregon. I meet people every week who have lost a loved one to fentanyl poisoning. I was down at the border and I was told by an active elective sheriff and all those that he supports, 51% of the fentanyl in our country that's killing 107,000 people come over the border, the unsecured border.
Well, let's talk abortion. You've said you would not support a federal ban on abortion, but as a Congresswoman, would you encourage policies that provide more access to reproductive care, as Oregonians tend to widely support, or would you seek to restrict access?
I am on record from day one of the first interviews I had with you, Brandon, that I oppose a federal ban on abortion. I don't think the federal government has any business in a woman's conversations in medical care between her and her doctor. I stand with Oregon on their laws. The 4th District is very clear, pro-choice, and I will oppose any interference by the federal government with Oregon law. Now, one thing I've learned as a candidate in this year is our current elected Congresswoman is a liar, she's a bully, and she thinks the voters are stupid. She especially thinks women voters are the dumbest of us all. And she just keeps running a lie. Took a little excerpt from an interview, a complete interview that we had where I told you the same thing I'm telling you today. Now, I'll tell you again, I am the only Republican who was not endorsed by Oregon Right to Life. And that's because I told them exactly what I told you back in November. I think it was November. And I've told everybody, Republicans, Constitution Party, Democrats, Independent Party, I told them what I told Oregon Right to Life. I oppose a federal ban on abortion. And then my lying opponent had the gall to say that I would like to restrict IVF. I have a beautiful family because of the miracle of IVF. I would never conceive of restricting that miracle of medical science that makes life so meaningful for so many of us that feel that families are what, my children are my inspiration for running for Congress. We really need to be concerned when we have an elected official who is so willing to tell lies. Val Hoy needs to stop Val-splaining to women, running her abortion lie on Pinterest and Etsy, and trying to target American women, thinking that they're so stupid that they won't go to my website and watch my full interview with you, where I'm very clear. Federal government has its work cut out for it with the enumerated powers in the Constitution, national security being number one. And I know, I've been all over this 4th District. People are very concerned for this nation's security.
What about if it came before you to codify Roe v. Wade back into law?
Interestingly, the Democrats have failed to seize that opportunity every chance they've had it. My Democrat friends have pointed that out, the frustration with when Democrats had the House and the Senate and the executive branch, they didn't codify it. This is a false narrative. This is a scare tactic. It's ridiculous. I'm here running as a representative for the 4th District, and I have vowed to defend Oregon's laws, all of them, against the federal government, particularly when it comes to women's rights.
Oregon is, there's an agreement among Democrats and Republicans that there's a shortage of housing and it costs too much. In Oregon, the homelessness crisis persists. There's a connection there.
Yes.
What is your best approach to solve these issues?
You get experts at the table, you listen to builders, you listen to bankers, you find out what the barriers are. I've been hearing about what the barriers. Builders can't access money. Where's the government that says, our governor says 35,000 houses this year, I think. What have they done to inspire that growth? We are importing wood. We let our forests burn. By the way, my opponent voted against the most transformative federal protection of forests, the Fix Our Forests Act just last week. 55 Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi and all the Republicans, voted in support, and thank God it passed despite Val Hoy. But my point there, right now we're letting our natural resources that could definitely put a dent in the cost of constructing homes, we're letting our timber burn, we're letting the mills close. No federal representative is standing up and inquiring as to why that's happening. It's happening because of inflation. It's happening because of restrictions. So I would remove the barriers, materials, labor, permitting. You know, we've talked about this before. I hear commonly $100,000 has to be spent before you can break the ground on a $400,000 house and start building the house. $100,000 in permitting, surveying, time delaying. It's, you know, we do not have genuine representation that wants to solve the problem. So I would have a team that wants to solve the problem. I will be part of the team that wants to solve the problem. And we have the talent, we have the will, we have people that can build houses. The other thing I'll add to that is the restrictions on land use. All of the humans in Oregon live on 7%, give or take a percent, of our real estate, of this land. Why is that? Can we really not come up with some bipartisan consensus? I mean, really, housing should not be a partisan issue. But you're absolutely right. The lack of housing is part of a very complex homelessness issue. The drugs, the access, the stupid Measure 110 and the lame, you know, Measure 110 light that was just passed. We have disingenuous representation. And I offer a stark contrast to that. These things can all be solved. We need representation that actually wants to solve the problem.
Let's touch on foreign policy. The crisis in the Middle East keeps growing. Ukraine still in a war with Russia. What role do you think the United States should take in these global conflicts?
You know, you're not an ally if you don't stand with your friends when they're in trouble, right? America is not a fair weather friend and never has been. We need to stand with our allies. Israel. To me, this is very simple. We stand against terrorism. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. We would want to protect, well, God help us if we didn't have leadership in America that would protect us from the terrible attacks, that are imminent, by the way, if we don't secure our border. You know, God help us if we have leadership that wants to negotiate with people that say America should be obliterated. By the way, Hamas does think that. I stand with Israel. The United States stands with Israel. They are our ally. I don't support blank checks to any foreign ally, but work together with them to be there in their hour of need, absolutely. And hold other players on the globe accountable for these, you know, to participate and come to the aid of democracies that are struggling, again, to protect themselves from terrorism.
Would you support Ukraine in its war against Russia?
No blank checks. You know, as a candidate, I don't have access to all the breakdown of the money and what it's being spent on. But when I'm in Congress, I'll certainly be paying attention to how that aid is being spent. So never at the detriment of America. And like I said, no blank checks, and requiring other EU, countries nearby that are affected to participate in the relief of Ukraine.
But you do support Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
I do. And I would say it's defense. It's defense against Russia.
You got it. You've promoted yourself as an independent voice for Oregon, but you are running as a Republican. You also are on the ballot as a member of the Constitution Party. How do you want Oregons to see you?
As a voice for Oregon, I am convinced, and so are most of the people in the 4th District, that Oregon is not heard in Washington, D.C. at these policy tables. We don't need a party stamp from any party. Oregon, the people of Oregon, all of them, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, Constitution Party, Libertarians, they all want representation. And when I say independent voice, it's the voice for the people who live here about the issues that are important to us. One of the biggest issues, and it touches on all of my priorities, public safety, the economy, and government accountability and transparency, surrounds the issue of the federal forest. 86% of our beautiful district is forest. Much of that is federally mismanaged. You know, all those parties that I just referred to, they care about the air they and their babies breathe. They care about housing, the homelessness issue. We can all agree that we're not being heard. There's been no progress in nearly 50 years of Democrat rule. You know, why is that? I'm not a career politician. I am a political outsider. My agenda, my priorities are the priorities of the people who live in the 4th District, and that is resonating with all parties. I have the support of people from all parties because they know we're going to lose our country if we don't secure that border. We will never pull out of the economic tailspin that we're in if we don't address it and start accessing our natural resources, hiring elected officials who really want to do the work of the people. You don't have to be a Republican to see that. So that's what I have to say about that. I welcome the support of Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Constitution Party, and of course Republicans.
I mean, I understand, you know, to a certain degree, in politics, you have to have the infrastructure and the backing of the parties, and you know, are aligned with the Republican Party in that sense, and they've supported you. Why the Constitution Party, though?
Well, I sought the nomination of the Independent Party. Val Hoy sought the nomination of the Independent Party. You know, it'll just be my way of business as your elected congresswoman to reach out to the leadership of my communities, right? So, I mean, this is not unusual at all. The Constitution Party believes in adhering to the U.S. Constitution. Do you know that the oath of office of a congresswoman is to uphold and defend the Constitution? It's the exact same oath I took as a commissioned officer every time I got promoted all the way to full colonel. I took the oath and promised to support and defend the U.S. Constitution. I don't think Val Hoy even understands that that is her primary function. I stand with the Constitution Party in their adherence to the Constitution, that the federal government is to support the people that elected it. You know, it's the Independent Party, their platform, much of it is very much aligned with the Republican Party. The Constitution Party is very much aligned with both of those parties. None of us agree on everything.
And that includes with the Republican Party, as you
and
said.
I would hope that it would include Val Hoy not agreeing with absolutely everything of her extreme left, the green agenda. Otherwise, she's going to be doing even more work in not accessing natural gas. She voted against the hands off our gas stoves, which is not the position of Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and Constitution Party that live in the 4th District. We know that from the city council's shenanigans trying to ban natural gas. She stands with the Eugene City Council on that, but not with the rest of the people that are here. But if she was to adhere to everything in her party, she would want to ban commercial flight. You know, instead of addressing the forests. The forests are like one of the biggest organisms on Earth that clean our air. And she voted against the one transformative bill that has been, you know, the Herculean effort of even getting legislation together over the years. And it's the only bill that has passed in this legislative session, bipartisan. Our Val Hoy is the least bipartisan member of Congress. She ranks in the bottom third of all the 435. She's like 333 in terms of her votes. I urge voters to go look at her votes. Now, I've issued more press releases and put more news on my website than our elected representative who's getting paid to communicate with her constituents. But you can go to MoniqueForCongress.com and you can go to the news section and you can see how our current elected representative is voting. And that's where the women who are getting those abortion ads that are a lie need to go and look and think about the air their children are breathing. Think about how Val Hoy has voted against small businesses. Their small women-owned businesses are being crushed by our current elected representative. This is what people need to be paying attention to. And I think they are.
And I've pressed you on this before. Do you support Donald Trump, and do you think he is the best choice to be president of the country?
I am not campaigning for president. I am laser focused on this congressional seat so that Oregon will be heard. So I present an independent voice for Oregon. I will be supporting the Republican nominee because, I mean, I can't support the current administration. I just got through telling you how important border security is, how important the economy is, how important government transparency and accountability is to the people who live in this 4th district. The current administration doesn't deliver on all those 3 things. And we are suffering the ramifications, the reverberating effects of just denying that we need national security, denying that our economy is in the gutter. So I can't support the current administration.
But do you support the former administration and President Trump as the next president, and do you support his policies?
However it shakes out in November, I will work with any president and anyone else in the House who wants to secure the border. You know, who wants to come to the table and come up with any and all solutions to secure the border. I'll work with anyone who wants to bring relief to the American people, start bringing back manufacturing, bringing back job opportunities, bringing back a workforce that can care for our children. That's what I'll support. And I will always stand up for Oregon in all of those discussions.
But you will be voting for Donald Trump?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming up to our studio again. It's a busy time.
It is.
Stretch run. All right. Thank you so much, Monique
Thank you.
DeSpain, running for Congress.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
We appreciate it.